Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our forum, Shaking Resiliency at its Core. What does advocacy look like? So, I am Savona Bailey-McClain, the Executive Director of the West Harlem Art Fund, and I wish to also introduce Shaun Rickenbacker from the J. Max Bond Center and Michael Gormley from the New York Artists Equity Association. So, we wish to thank you for coming out again, but I would like to give them a chance each to talk with you.
Great. Great to see everyone. And Savannah, thank you for organizing this. This is really your brainchild. And so, what I want to do, maybe I should reintroduce myself a little bit. I'm Shaun Rickenbacker. I'm the director of the J. Max Bond Center for Urban Futures. I'm here with a couple of colleagues that will be presenting later on, MacWillie and Zihao from the School of Architecture. And how we came to be here, if I may, just to share a little bit. Savannah reached out to the college, and this is important because Savannah is key and instrumental, her and her organization, with regards to the activities that they orchestrate throughout the community. And with a loving concern for park space and open space within that community, she approached us what you believe to be was a problem, not yet an existential threat, but a problem nonetheless that was occurring in the parks around City College and the community. And so we sat and discussed. Savannah brought more people. June was one of those people who actually came. Zihao and Lizzie participated. And really we formulated this notion that we were all there under the same premise that resilience and climate change were the reasons that we were brought together. And somehow the community at large was a vested partner and a strategic partner in how we were going to address this. We didn't have any solutions on the table, but it was the community who identified the problem and approached us, City College and the Bond Center, as a resource to help work on that problem collectively. So that's how we've come to be, and perhaps even the formation of the Northern Manhattan Resilience Coalition. And so we're just really excited. We don't have ready-made solutions. In fact, we don't believe in those because resiliency is a moving target. It wasn't here in the capacity that it is here today, 10 years ago, not even 5 years ago. So what we want to stress as far as the Bond Center's engagement and concern is that we approach all of these problems as specific locales and problems specific to a particular community. So you'll see some of the work that the center is involved in that looks at a broad stretch of Northern Manhattan. So thus the title is quite appropriate. It's not just one park, but these are a series of parks. Those parks in and of themselves represent a larger ecosystem that Northern Manhattan relies on. So we want to look at the individual, but we also want to look at the collective in that capacity. So I want to invite all of you here to join us and reach out to us, work with us, support us in this endeavor. And I think we're going to learn a lot tonight. So I'll leave it there and let you sort of take over.
Great.
All right?
Again, my name is Michael Gormley, and I'm the executive director of the New York Artists Equity Association, which was founded in 1947 by a group of rather prestigious, successful artists that wanted to help emerging artists and also to build an audience for art. And among those founders was Jacob Lawrence and his wife, Gwendolyn Knight, who are still a foundation that supports us, and Augusta Savage. And those are Harlem natives, so we have an intimate connection with Harlem. This is not my wheelhouse. Art and design is my wheelhouse, but I've watched as we did Harlem Sculpture Gardens with Savona here, who's on our board, is our trustee, how that energized the parks and that space and what it did to the residents and how it was able to activate the residents and sort of reclaim parts of those spaces, which led us here. And how do we how do we preserve those public spaces, and how can we use art and design and architecture and urban planning to make those spaces for everybody. So thanks for coming, and I'm excited to see what solutions we come up with. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Mike. And so our first presentation, I should step here. Our first presentation will be from Councilman Shaun Abreu. Before he speaks, I just want to share how much he has been very supportive, he and his staff. They actually helped us, went through a walkthrough in Morningside Park. He actually helped us with getting chairs when we did the unveiling of the hip-hop sculpture at Montefiore Park. His team has been very supportive of getting emails out, messages out to people. We've been trying to train people as tree stewards, and Gabriel can attest to that, and just very, very supportive. And it's very hard to get an elected to be that engaged. And so he has championed a lot of environmental causes, and so he's going to talk about what he has been doing so far. So thank you so much, Shaun.
Well, thank you so much, Savona. And, you know, providing chairs is the least I could do. We really appreciate your commitment to the neighborhood and everything you've been doing. I'd like to thank everyone tonight who made this possible, from Manhattan Neighborhood Network to NYU to the Bond Center, to everyone who's present here tonight. I just want to say thank you. Welcome to Climate Week. Welcome to Climate Week. This is an exciting time of the year where we talk about the city's efforts, about how we can create a more sustainable, not only future, but a present sustainable plan. I have the honor tonight to be talking a little bit about composting. And so that's something that brings me a lot of joy. Organic materials make about a third of the entire city's trash refuse. A third. And before I get into how far off we are in terms of our progress, what is composting? Compost is a banana peel that turns into soil. It goes into our community gardens, our tree beds, and our parks, and gets redistributed back into our communities. The city has outlined a policy on what's compostable and what isn't. For the sake of brevity, I'll go into a few examples. Fruits, vegetables, coffee grounds, tea bags, eggshells, bread, pasta, these are all compostable materials. What is not compostable? Plastic, glass, metal, styrofoam, pet waste, diapers, chemicals, cigarettes, and ashes. But what has made composting in the city so difficult is that we haven't created the infrastructure for it. We have created the infrastructure for recycling bins in our building and trash bins in our building. But what about composting bins? Finally, New York City is bringing citywide composting to our city, where we're going to have curbside composting all around New York. Queens has had it, Brooklyn has had it, and now it's finally coming to Manhattan in just a few weeks. Compost pickup will be done the same day as your recycling pickup. So if you're excited about compost, make sure you bring it out the same day you put out your recycling. This is going to be a big change, and yes, even a sea change. Some people do it already, right? A lot of individuals bring their food scraps to their local farmers markets. They bring it to their community gardens. They put them in the smart bins, something you can access just with the use of an app. But the truth of the matter is that most people throw their food scraps in the trash. And it gets picked up, taken to a facility, a transfer station. First, it gets picked up by a truck, taken to a transfer station. And then from that transfer station, it gets on another truck to take that food waste, to be driven out to places as far as west as Ohio or as far south as South Carolina, where it gets placed in a landfill to rot and let off green gas emissions. the silly thing about all of this is that getting rid of a banana peel is very, very expensive when you think about it. Each year, the city spends $500 million in literally just exporting tons of trash to landfills. That's a lot of money. And just think about how much more we can be saving if we're repurposing our food scraps into compost to redistribute that back into our communities, right? To our parks, our tree pits, our rain gardens. There's just so much opportunity that we aren't leveraging. There are a lot of challenges. And for instance, before city curbside composting is coming to Manhattan, we've had it in Queens already. In Queens, we have seen less than 5% of compostable material get composted. We're talking about 4.3%, guys. And so we have an uphill battle. We used to have curbside composting before in 2017. The city did away with it on or about 2020. Our rate for processing was twice before than it is now. This speaks to an issue that government often interferes with, and that is the issue of habit. We used to compost at least 10% of compostable material in Queens in 2017. Now we're only at 4.3%. So why is it that the city can come in and take away something that we have created a habit to do, and then we have to start from scratch again? It's like building a muscle, right? You know when you go to the gym a few times and then you don't go back? Boy, when you go back to that gym 5 months later, you're gonna be feeling sore every single day until you build up that stamina. It's the same way with civic behavior. It's the same way with composting. If you're not composting, it doesn't come to you as second nature, it's not reflexive. Well, good luck, you're gonna have to build that muscle again. And so that's something that I'm committed to doing, to making sure that not only that we're building the muscle, but that the city is committed to composting. And that's where community composting comes into play. Let me talk to you about community composting. Community composting is representative of nonprofits that collect and process food scraps to make compost. We have Earth Matter here with us tonight. They process, let's go. They process our compost. These are local nonprofits like Big Reuse, Lower East Side Ecology, Brother Sister Soul, who's in the house and is now part of the coalition, by the way. These are folks who really work in the local community gardens. They pick up food scraps. They're the composting infrastructure. And it's just so important that at a time where we're trying to build this muscle, that we double down on you guys, right? We also included cafeteria culture as part of this coalition, which is going to work with young kids in our schools so they can start asking themselves, you know, what is compost? Yes, this is kind of a picture book, really, but it goes from banana peel to soil. Just, a few weeks ago, at the first week of school, my stepdaughter was asked at school, what is composting? And because I compost, she said, it's a banana peel that becomes dirt. And it was the most beautiful thing when the teacher told me that. She was the only one in the class that knew about it. But we should create an opportunity for every child to know what that means. And that's what's going to impact our participation rates. That's what's going to impact our diversion rates. And ultimately, build that muscle that we desperately need. Let me tell you, the work that we did with the Community Compost Coalition resulted in rallies on more fingers than I can count, newspaper articles and op-eds. Over 50,000 people signed our petition. I'm sure many of you in this room did that. And we won. We were able to restore $6.6 million in the budget for community composting. And not only were we able to restore functions, we were able to add new groups. We understood that with curbside composting coming citywide, there's going to be more people going to know about composting. They're going to want to work with local nonprofits. So how are we going to scale up processing? That's why we beefed up the budgets of folks who do processing like Earth Matters, right? This is why we are creating that infrastructure so that government doesn't step in once again and say, I'm taking it away. This composting is here to stay, my friends. And so I want to tell you this, that as part of building that muscle, I'm asking you to order your bin today. You can Google New York City free brown bins to place an order. And as you can see in this beautiful photo, this is what composting looks like. And I want to thank every one of you for doing your part. This is something that makes me very, very, very proud that we're going to keep funding this work to the largest extent that we can, because that's our job. Thank you very much.
I'm Lizzie MacWillie. I'm the Assistant Director of the J. Max Bond Center, which is a applied research center at the Spitzer School of Architecture at City College.
And I'm Zhang. I'm Assistant Professor and Director of the Master of Landscape Architecture program at the City College of New York. And I'm also a member of the ASLA, which stands for American Society for Landscape Architecture, New York chapter board member. So they're actually having another forum right now. So it's a climate week.
So we're going to share a little bit about the research. I'll do the next one. About the research that we've been doing, kind of spurred by the conversations that Shaun mentioned earlier with Savona and June and other folks that are represented here. So what we're sharing is very much in progress. But I'm sorry, I just put my timer on. Share some of our research goals that we've been working on. We're a design school. I'm an architect, an urban designer, and Zihao's a landscape architect. So our research goals, spatializing Harlem's networks of climate resilience through its people, organizations, ecologies, and places. So kind of mapping and understanding how Harlem is affected by climate change and how it can resist climate change. So identifying opportunities for strengthening those networks through knowledge co-creation, like opportunities like this, workshops, other initiatives that we've been working on, and then co-designing visions for these opportunities to create a climate resilient Harlem and measure the impact of these interventions. So as designers, we're thinking about, what does this look like? We understand how these networks work, what strengthening them might be, what are the kind of design implications that we might consider. And so these are some of the existing conditions that Savona brought to our attention that we've seen over the course of the last year in terms of the impact of increased rainfall, increased extreme weather events in the parks near the school and the surrounding neighborhood, of increased flooding, challenges with absorption of water in the soil, and down trees due to erosion and weakening of the soil structure. So again, we're here to present ongoing analysis of existing conditions, and we're going to kind of share with you these studies of what we're seeing currently in Harlem.
All right, I'll take it from here. So it's really, we're going to present through three sections. The first is about slope. I'm going to take you on a historical geology, not a class, but crash course. So I want to show this image is because one of our students, we do this design studios at architecture school, right? And one of our students presented this image to me at one point, saying, okay, at some point, the date here is 1907. So it's at some point we were more connected with the ground we inhabit, and what's this depicting is residents having their life on Manhattan schist, the outcrops of Manhattan schist. However, however, we're going through this process of making the ground disappear in a way, and these are just several historical maps. We sort of arrange them across time, and as you can see here, that's the oldest one, and gradually the depicting of the Manhattan schist, the outcrops, start to disappear and start to be replaced by the hard line of the street grid, especially here, right? And again, these are just showing you, how this process happened. And eventually those outcrops challenging topography become the parks we inhabit, we have right now, the 3 parks that we bring to the question today. And there is the model we produced of the St. Nicholas Park, the middle one. And as you can see, the topography change is dramatic. And because of those change of geography there, it becomes not inhabitable. That's why, this leftover spaces now become parks. Yeah. So again, other ways to look at, look at the sections, cross sections of the 3 parks. And this is the study trying to understand the slope of the parks. They're really challenging. And that's overlaying the park's boundary here. So the reason I want to present this is we're currently in a time that we kind of lost this connection with the land, with the ground we inhabit. But when we start to take on a different lens by looking at the geology, the geological history of the city, and all of a sudden we started to realize there's some similarities of the 3 parks, and we can start to imagine them as a line that connects Upper Manhattan, and started to use it as an opportunity to generate some conversations and discourse around this topic. And I'll stop here, and you can take it over.
So next, we were looking at watersheds, what we're calling micro watersheds. So watersheds they're areas where all of the water flows to the same place when it lands on that piece of land, flows to the same place and is outlet in the same from the same location, right? So in this map, you can see what Zihao was talking about in terms of the high points and the low points and the kind of topographic shift across Harlem. So the lighter areas in this map are the high points, and the darker areas are the low points, which has a big effect on how water flows, right? So we wanted to understand, when we saw flooding, what was contributing to that, not only in terms of the soil makeup and the kind of rock formations, but also the way that water flows because of other things like streets and the slope of the hills. And you can see here the areas in blue, the darker blue, those are areas that tend to flood. So water pools in those areas, and you can see the kind of little rivulets that flow to those areas. So this helps us understand, what areas are prone to flooding, what areas might be prone to flooding in the future, how water flows across the land, both the kind of natural environment of the parks and the built environment of the streets around them. And the second area that we've been looking at is a kind of existing ecosystem, mostly trees, and their relationship to heat in Harlem. We know that Harlem is highly impacted by the urban heat island effect. So it's hotter than a lot of areas in the city. And you can see here the kind of darker red and orange. Those are areas that are kind of hot spots where the temperature is over 100.4 Fahrenheit in the summer. And then the darker areas of green are areas that are more vegetated. So there's a correlation between areas that have a higher vegetation and a lower temperature. So we zoomed into looking at a couple of areas. You can see, for instance, on 128th Street, where there are no trees planted, that the temperature is higher. We also know that there are a lot of areas that have younger trees that have recently been planted that are also hotter in temperature. So eventually, 10, 20 years from now, the tree canopy will provide a lot more shade. But then there's a question of what do you do in the meantime while you're waiting for those trees to mature. And then in correlation with that, we've also been looking at stewardship, right? So how does the various stewardship programs that exist in the city, tree pit stewards, organization, Friends of Parks groups. How does that relate to the kind of strength of the ecosystems across Harlem and the kind of protection that's in place to combat urban heat island effect? So, as this is all in progress, we've been thinking about, okay, what are the next steps? What design strategies can we use to protect Harlem's urban ecosystems as extreme rain and extreme temperature events increase?
And here we're again, like Shaun said, we're not really providing solutions, but here are some examples of urban design and landscape design projects around the world that we start to look at. And for example, this one here represents a you can take that's a permeable pavement, right? So you can take a sidewalk and change that into this permeable pavement so that the rainwater will infiltrate into the ground. And this one is recently opened in Brooklyn Botanical Garden, where they implemented this retention pond, which the water level will lower before a rainstorm, storm event, so that it can collect water during stormwater event. So on the right is right after rainfall, and on the left is pre-rainfall. It's a smart water system that you can take weather prediction, and there's a rainfall in the future 2 hours, then we can lower the water level and allow water to collect. So yeah.
And then, looking for opportunities to increase access to shade. We know that trees are the preferable method for creating for finding shade. But again, it takes a long time for trees to mature. So are there other opportunities to increase shade in areas that have higher temperatures, which we know has adverse health outcomes that we can consider?
And finally, here is the earlier idea we mentioned. Currently, the 3 parks, because of the challenging topography, they serve as an obstacle that divide East Harlem and the rest of the Harlem. But somehow, can we start to imagine it as a linear spine that works not as an obstacle, but as a connector or connection to bring 2 sides together? So that's the ultimate idea we want to think about. I'll stop sharing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's us.
Thank you.